Welcome to Maximum Foods Inside Track. Would you believe this is our 100th edition? Thank you very much for all your support and feedback over the last 4 years. It's been great sending you the fortnightly update. And for today's update, we'll start off with my esteemed colleague, Edwin Lloyd.
Thanks, John. Appreciate your kind words, and you've done most of the recordings over the last 4 years, so I've only come in the last 6 months. It's been great to see the changes in your facial hair over the last 4 years and how that's developed. I'm going to give a quick update on the macro dairy picture for the last 2 weeks. So we've seen pricing come off slightly in the last 2 weeks here in Oceania. Seems to be all demand driven. We are in the winter months and we are at the lowest point of the season. I think consumers at the moment are pausing, really trying to see what's going to happen in the future. We're seeing interest rate rises. The macroeconomic picture is really a little bit unsure, so it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. No cause for longer term trends yet. Pricing still within the bands that I mentioned in the previous Inside Track, and the constraints on supply still exist. So those constraints should keep pricing high. If anything, at the moment, this is probably a good buying opportunity for people. We are going to see these ups and downs over the coming months.
Further to what Edwin has mentioned on a macro level, have a quick whip around the commodities. Whole milk powder, we have seen a bit of a dip in demand for whole milk powder. China's still sitting out largely on the auction overnight, with pricing dipping back a little bit. Sort of evened out really by a weakening Aussie dollar. So actual net pricing into Australia for whole milk powder is still quite firm. And once again, that outlook of whole milk powder will be really based on demand levels. Supply is still really quite constrained. With skim milk powder, much the same, saw a little correction overnight. Pricing has been very firm, as you know, for the last 18 months on skim. Once again, the supply dynamics are tight. It will be for Australian skim and New Zealand skim. And it is still the best, the cheapest globally at the moment when you consider that it's quite expensive to get product out of the US. So with an outlook of that, we will probably see a little bit of volatility, but all the while remaining quite firm for the next 3 to 6 months. Having a look at butterfat. Butter last night, we did see quite a large dip on GDT. This was a bit unpredicted. However, the main supply constraints of butter is still there. New Zealand Australian butter is still the cheapest globally. So there will still be good demand globally for Oceania butter. We should see it reasonably flat for the next 3 to 6 months. So it's probably a good buying opportunity for butter for Q3, Q4. Looking at whey powder, as previously mentioned in the last Inside Track, WPC seems to be stabling in price. WPI still in very hot demand. The next projection, short to medium term for proteins is relatively flat. We do see a bit of demand burning off in the sports nutrition market in Australia, just at these really high prices. Finishing off with cheddar. We won't see a lot more production of cheddar in Australia and New Zealand because it is the lowest returning production stream against full cream milk powder or butter and skim. So yeah, supply will be quite tight, specifically in Australia and NZ, pricing at pretty firm levels.
Thanks, John. Well, that's the 100th edition of the Inside Track. I think probably the main message there is that we're in a bit of a pause, looking at what's going to happen in demand over these next coming months. So we'll keep a close eye on that. We'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. But just before we finish, I just want to introduce the person who puts all of this together, who creates from 2 hours of myself and John at the 4 minutes that you see on LinkedIn. So that's Hayley. She's actually from Bundaberg, so she is a little bit cold today, hence why she's wearing a jacket, but that's it from Maximum Foods, and we'll see you next time. As you can probably tell, we're not trained professionals in front of the camera. Here's a few bloopers from the last few years.
You're my best friend, ooh, you make me
Sorry. Oh no, I've got them.
Back to Maxim Foods inside truck. Testing.
You just say a few things.
Yeah, can you hear me? How does that sound?
Some foods. Nah, this edition.
Just want to keep talking before.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Peter Pepper picked peppers. 50 pack of toilet paper. So who knows? We could see a real shortage.
Oh, well, I guess it would be nice.
No. What's that? Are you starting? Sorry. Of the year, let's start again. I always put my head like that.
Yeah, that's right. And then smile.
Is that a nice smile?
Yeah.
This week's into.
Yeah, for Schmarker. Interesting fortnight in dairy. Yearly, quarterly, or so much like our processes. I started off with we reasonably the effects. Maxine, who is our pet cow here at the Finchley Street office.
So GDT, been too long. Good. That was for increases. I looked at the paper. I've got to get rid of the paper. Man. This week after last week's weeps.
Hello, and there's normally a food platter up here as well for the talent.